The right to vote is enshrined in our Constitution and a fundamental part of a vibrant and participatory democracy. Yet around 12,000 Oregonians are currently denied that right to vote, leading to disproportionate impacts of disenfranchisement for low-income, Black, Indigenous, and Latinx people.
The right to vote is enshrined in our Constitution and fundamental to a vibrant and participatory democracy. Yet around 12,000 people in Oregon are currently denied their right to vote, leading to low-income, Black, Indigenous, and Latinx people being disproportionately disenfranchised.
The right to vote is enshrined in our Constitution and fundamental to the vibrant and participatory democracy. Yet around 12,000 people in Oregon are currently denied their right to vote, leading to the disproportionate disenfranchisement of low-income, Black, Indigenous, and Latinx people.
And in Oregon, just like in the rest of the country, the number of people disenfranchised has grown right along with the number of people incarcerated. These policies disproportionately harm Black, Latinx, and Indigenous residents, and the Sentencing Project's efforts find that a range of criminal legal practices, including disproportionate police stops and excessive rates of drug arrests for Black, Hispanic, and Indigenous residents, contribute to the collateral impacts of mass incarceration, including felony disenfranchisement.
At around 12,000 people in Oregon are currently denied their right to vote, leading to low-income, Black, Indigenous, and Latinx people being disproportionately disenfranchised.
It is important to know that disenfranchisement of incarcerated persons did not exist in the United States prior to the Civil War era. States only began to do so to disempower newly enfranchised African Americans. And as you know, Oregon's history of racism was particularly egregious. It's up to us to correct this injustice.
In our criminal legal system, low-income, Black, Indigenous, and people of color are more likely to be incarcerated.
I am also a retired teacher and taught literacy for many, many years to a very strongly disenfranchised population.
Blocking people with felony convictions from voting started in the Jim Crow era and was an intentional strategy to keep Black people from voting because they are disproportionately impacted by the biased criminal legal system. Today, we still see the impact of disenfranchisement fulfilling its original purpose. Due to biases and inequities in our legal system, low-income, Black, Indigenous, and Latinx people are still more likely to be incarcerated and thus are disenfranchised at disproportionately higher rates. In Oregon, 9% of incarcerated people are Black, whereas Black people are 2% of the state's residents. This is unacceptable. We must end the legacy of disenfranchisement in Oregon. Additionally, recidivism, sorry, it's a hard word for me to say, rates are high in part because for many people, life after prison only means partial citizenship, as formerly incarcerated people often experience limited opportunities for employment, housing, and voting. Making sure Oregonians can vote while incarcerated allows them to feel involved in their communities and increases the success of reintegration when they come back. Research suggests that restoring voting rights to people impacted by the criminal legal system could aid their transition back into the community life. In one study, among individuals who had been arrested previously, 27% of non-voters were rearrested compared with 12% of voters. As we work to reimagine our criminal legal system, one of the first changes we can make is to restore voting rights to people who are most impacted by that system, those inside prisons.
Voter fraud and undue influence.
Someone who is denied the right to vote is placed in civic death, and we have to ask whether this type of thinking reflects 21st century thinking about criminal justice.
Taking away the right to vote as a punitive measure is inconsistent with Oregon's values. It is civic death and an affront to our civil liberties. However, the continued disenfranchisement of incarcerated individuals undermines the very legitimacy of our democracy.
Marge Eastley, next. Marge, are you coming in virtually? Marge.